Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and we also have
Calvin Ellis, ready to rap.
today we are doing a issue of the Avengers, issue 181. This is not the first issue Byrne drew. Now, I don't think the first issue that David McElhaney wrote, but it's the start of their short run. I think the only reason why Byrne didn't stay on this because they kind of just switched him out for Perez because Perez was coming back to the title. But here we kind of have the covers saying that the Avengers are finally going to have a lineup. Now, this is obviously something that Shooter kind of put forth, but at the same time, Shooter's also the guilty person in having this large group of Avengers because when him and Perez was doing it, Perez was just adding more characters, the Guardians of the Galaxy. We have a couple champions in there, moon dragons in there for some reason, and we have a couple other heroes that like Wonder Man, who's just been with the team since he came back to life. He'd never been really an official member, but he's just been with the team for all this time. So, and then we also have Captain Marvel. We see Miss Marvel here, but Captain Marvel is also here somewhere. And this cover is a redo of what was in the book. So, any thoughts before I go on?
No thoughts. Take it away.
All right. So, when we start this issue out, we have the Beast and Simon Williams watching a movie. Now, when both of these characters actually both introduced, they were both had a science background, and since I guess Shooter, or I guess it was Shooter, just deemed them to be the dummies, they would be getting girls and doing the frivolous stuff, while the brains of the Avengers would be doing high level stuff, figuring out what's going on with whatever. And these guys would go out and meet girls. I always thought it would be fun if they actually, instead of doing that, did something science related. But yeah, they were having fun. This was their kind of thing for the period. They're going to the movies, hanging out and talking, and we have these character moments in between them, and they're going back to the Avengers mansion. But at the same time, something's going on in the Avengers mansion, so they get attacked by their own home. They had the key. They called the intruder to get attacked. We know these type of security systems never work on the heroes, but they have these moments where it happens. The shot of Wonder Man picking up the hat is really nice too. Even though obviously the beast hopping around is really cool. Yeah, so then we get to, they usually break through that stuff. But when we go in there, we actually see the man of the hour, Henry Gyrich. I think this is kind of his. No, he appeared in. I think Shooter brought him in when the Avengers was fighting. He's a guy, Count Nefaria. He's walking around making an assessment of what the Avengers are doing, and we'll find out soon enough. I think some of these faces are inked by Bob Layton. These characters from Iron Man is Tony Stark, and we have Scott Lang. I think their faces are inked by Bob Layton. But here we have in redhead with the glasses is Henry Gyrich. He's the government official who's going to throw the hammer down on the Avengers. And now that he's in there, they're redoing the security. That's why Stark is there, and they came at the wrong time. Right? So as we go in there, we have a mysterious figure coming into there, the old man that looks like it was a Gandalf. Iron Man's going to put on his outfit, and they get met by Henry Gyrich saying there's too many Avengers, and we obviously see there are too many Avengers. Now, to us as fans, when I bought this book, I'm like, no. I was like, that's cool. Look, everyone's hanging out. And actually, it'd be foreboding because the Guardians of the Galaxy might be a big part of the more recent Avengers Doomsday. So I think Star-Lord isn't in this Guardians of the Galaxy, but the other one would be there. So, but as a kid, I was like, more the Avengers, the more the merrier, right? But don't get rid of my favorites like Jessica, not even Quicksilver. But at the same time, when you find out his choice, he has Iron Man, Vision, Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Beast, Wasp, and the Falcon. And Hawkeye's like, what? That bozo's only powers are flying and rapping with birds. Now, how does he know that much information about about the Falcon? Should he even be on his radar? But it's for us to tell us what his powers are. So they're
That's
meeting. Hmm?
that's a Hawkeye line if there ever was one. He's like, who?
But it's like, how
Huh?
do you know that he would know that much
You're
information?
replacing? Yeah, he's just doing lowest common denominator. It's like you're replacing me with who? This dude is flying. It wouldn't matter if it was somebody else. He would just find some other way to lowball them.
That's
But
what I was more, instead of trying to explain his powers. And
well, yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't want to get off the team. Like
yes,
I said,
so
I don't care what this dude's powers are. It could have been anybody else. I don't want to get off the team. And to be frank, Hawkeye had been there. I mean, I don't remember. Yeah, because he came in as Hawkeye. Then I guess they had that issue where he was like, well, we need more like muscle power. So he becomes Goliath thanks to the Pym particles or Pym's formula. Then eventually he's Hawkeye again. But he's a long-standing member of the team. And then he's getting booted off. He's like, what do you mean I'm getting booted off? And for this guy, he's not even a member. But this was part of the reason this issue actually came into mind because the way that Gyrich had already been there, and I think they established something like in order for the Avengers to operate, they needed to have like clearance
oh,
or
this
something.
this is it. This is where it starts up right here.
I thought it started, no, I thought it started before. Okay,
He's just around the book. He hasn't really. This is where he finally states his case, and he's setting down the rules for the Avengers clearance that there be a set amount, and you know, get some of these guys out the mansion, which of course they get in trouble. And by I think it's issue 190, it's in this arc. 190, they're in court, and at the same time, there's this rock-like creature that's attacking New York, and they can either keep the Avengers in court or fight. So it's like this is the setup for him giving them a standard of 7 members, that sort of thing. And the reason they want to show equal opportunities to minorities. And you were saying about the reason why you wanted to do this issue.
it was basically this. This is prescient to a lot of the stuff that we have going on now with comics, where hey, we need to one the teams are almost somehow in line with some government agency. They're the original thing was that it was more like a clubhouse stuff, so it was independent. Bunch of people, they would get together, they hung out, that sort of stuff. And this was one of the first times I can remember where literally like the government was trying to horn their way in. It's like, no, you guys need clearance, you need to be officially sanctioned, and then what's more, we can call shots as to who's going to be on the team. And then when you look at the actual team, you can see why each particular member is picked. Okay, why each particular member is picked. You're going to have Stark on the team because that's the money. You got Cap on the team because even if he's not the chairman and leader, hey, everybody trusts and likes Cap. So anything with him, we can definitely spin. And then the rest of the members sort of fall in. And Hawkeye gets the boot because he's like, well, hey, you got to go. Why? He's like, well, because we can't have Black Panther on the team, which means you were going anyway. But we can't have Black Panther on the team. So since we can't have Black Panther, we need another minority on the team. So it comes over. We got to get those over here. And Gyrich is clearly establishing what a minority is as well. Because you've got people. What is it? You have on the good grief. You got the Beast on the team. You have Scarlet Witch on the team. Both are mutants. That doesn't seem to be an issue. Okay, but he's like, no, we need somebody the right skin color over here. And since Black Panther's leaving, Falcon meets the whole thing. But it's very much like some of the arguments that people are making today. Only thing is with this issue, it was whether they were going for that or not, it was about the intrusiveness of the whole thing and how it was so inorganic, that it wasn't very palatable. Now nobody cares, but this right over here, I think it's a very prescient issue. The only thing in hindsight that I wish I had done was to find a modern counterpart where all this stuff is pretty much going on and everybody's just like, hey, it really does need to be this way. Whereas if you're a reader, especially like you just said yourself, you're like, hey, what do you mean you're cutting down the team? This is great. The more the merrier at the end of the day. And so we're going to make this into a magnificent seven, but a magnificent seven that's, politically correct and possessive of affirmative action.
Yeah, for me, I think since read this, I knew the story. I did have when they were in court, and I did have, I think, the issue after that where the Falcon fights. It might be those last three. It might be those last three that Byrne did. I think 189, 190, 191, where it all comes to a head. And then the Falcon, and no, then I did see, I think, 185 or 186, one of those two. Okay, no, give me that to 187, because Falcon was in there. And he's not. The thing is that the hard part for me was I had seen the issues after this, and I'd seen Hawkeye. And actually, maybe I've seen a bunch of them. I mean, feels like I saw maybe 4 or 5 of these issues. Maybe issue with the Absorbent Man as a villain, where we clearly see that the Hawkeye was out, so I already knew Hawkeye was out. Then there's when they fight in the nice Wongador where Falcon comes and not able to do much. And then the Hawkeye gets a job. He fights in Deathbird, and people are now still bothered over Hawkeye kissing Deathbird after he sends her off to jail. Like, oh my God, violation! She was trying to kill him. I don't think
that still doesn't give him the right to violate
her. So then the next issue, since Vision and Scarlet Witch say they're leaving the team, Gyrich is like, what? And he takes them to court, and then to get rid of their priority, basically saying they can't fight in the city. So when they go to defend in the city, they'll be arrested. And then the Falcon has his issue where he he doesn't necessarily have a great fight. He just holds off the Grey Gargoyle until the rest of the Avengers come. And for me, it was kind of like this episode of All in the Family, where they try to do an episode where Meathead was lined up for a job, but they couldn't give him the job because they had an affirmative action plan. So they said, yes, you're smart, you're qualified. But basically, we're trying to say that they had this unqualified guy, but we need to take in someone of color. And I was just like, I don't think that's what it is. And then kind of hearing some of the stories of
in regards to the Falcon being on the team.
No, it's same difference, like showing his inefficiencies, showing he didn't, he wasn't able to do much in like at least three of the stories up until the last one where they say him giving, holding off the Grey Gargoyle. And they basically kind of showed him not in the best light. Now, if you look at Kirby, when he was doing Captain America, they were a solid team. Like they were a team, and Falcon kind of ran S.H.I.E.L.D. when Cap wasn't around. When he was around with S.H.I.E.L.D., he would run, not like a total, but he would be in kind of, he'd be an important part of the thing. So in reading Captain America and the Falcon, and then coming here, it's like, oh wow, Falcon's going to be in the Avengers, and they're just trying to show you, well, his powers don't work because of, so Hawkeye, who's human, powers work. The Beast is just joking. He doesn't even have the strength that he used to have. He just jokes around. That makes sense. The Falcon can't do anything, and regretfully for me, it was kind of writing against the character than writing to the character, and kind of showing, Cap trying to stand up for him and saying this guy is solid. Which ultimately they came to having the Falcon come to the thing and saying, I don't like how I got it, I'm out of here. So he kind of leaves. So it's just kind of a statement, like the way with I bring up all of that, it's just a statement to say affirmative action is wrong because you're putting an unqualified person in to the job when you have a qualified, which that is not what happens. When they find a qualified black person, they like to use the stamp of affirmative action because they're not taking anybody who's not good in a job just to fill a quota. There's definitely not that. There's no case. And if you're at any jobs, enough knuckleheads of regular people in your job, especially in I guess in any job, you have some ne'er-do-wells. They could be of any race. So this thing of trying to point out that they were picking underqualified people just because they had to, try to help people get to the stage where affirmative action is just because they weren't hiring people. There was a historic thing of not wanting to hire people of color. So it's like, hey, you got this thing, and it doesn't have to just be back in the day when they were like, say, and that, obviously affirmative action more for, actually, they say ultimately this comes out to women, like ultimately not even black women, just, women in general getting opportunities for that. So it didn't even venture off to the guy like Meathead or the Falcon type of deal, that sort of thing. So in my mind as a kid, I was kind of iffy on this because it was like I liked the Falcon, and then they were trying to show you how much he didn't work, and then they also try to show you how well Hawkeye did work. So I'm not saying obviously Falcon come in there would be some growing pains, but then you always have new Avengers here. You had well, they didn't do a good job with Ms. Marvel either. But if the writer likes the character, you're going to do it well. And the same with Jeff Johns when he brought the Falcon in. Falcon was a decent member of the team. When Byrne had him in there when they were doing Acts of Vengeance, the Falcon led the charge. So it's like you don't have to write down to the Falcon. So it was kind of like as a kid, I couldn't wait for the Falcon to join. I didn't want, and actually Hawkeye doesn't really leave. He's in like every issue.
Yeah, like Wonder Man. Wonder Man's in like, hey, listen to what Wonder Man's doing in California.
He's still in every issue. So I just it's my more than 2 cents on it, but it's like I was a fan of it, so they kind of took him down a peg. And you hear the Quicksilver kind of points out the thing that you're pointing. Hey, talking about mutants, robots. He said, we got an Asgardian here. You talk about a more diverse group. Like, what do you want? And it leads us into the next story where he falls out, and they don't know what's wrong with him. So,
in order to make the point about force fitting someone in simply, because of their race, you end up literally tanking the Falcon's character, and that was something that never sat well with me with his run here. Because I mean, pretty much the Falcon is being set up to fail. He's not. You have everyone else in the team has been working together for a while, so he has to come in, and the person he's used to working with is Captain America, but this is not the same dynamic. So then, of course, they're going to give him the issue where it finally, like, oh, you see, the Falcon has, look, Falcon can do it. But they had all these bad issues before that. Yeah. And then, you're showing over here, like, hey, Hawkeye's going over here and showing how great he can do against, like, really a Deathbird who should be, like, wiping the floor with a guy like him. But he's very resourceful. And I mean, no, that's me not taking anything away from Hawkeye. Great character, come a long way by the point of this particular storyline. But then you look at the whole thing in order to show that, yeah, Hawkeye probably should have been the guy on the team as opposed to the Falcon. You got to, they do the traditional thing in writing where in order to show how good this character is, we got to show how bad this one is at the end of the day. And that was never the Falcon's character. Probably the best moment of it was when he resigned and he says, look, I'm getting out of here. I was only here because you wanted a token on the team and I'm not doing it anymore. And then he left. They tried to, sometime later, they would try to make up for that sometime in the 90s where Jeff Johns is on the book and had Falcon back on the team, and this would be more of a legitimate run for him with the Avengers. But right here, I thought, very good beginnings of, well, let me not say the beginnings, but like a preview of future things that they would probably force fit onto storylines now. If you were someone, oh, that's probably the book I should have done when they decided to do the whole new Avengers, and it was like this, Ms. Marvel and Miles Morales, a whole bunch of people together in the Avengers. Like, who the hell are these people?
Yeah, I know the period. I don't know the issue.
You remember who the team leader was?
No, I don't.
Falcon.
Oh, wow.
So there you go, right? But it's like, okay, who are these people and why are they here? But literally, everybody's there not because they have any established character, but it was time for this new vanguard of younger characters who also happen to be, from all from different backgrounds, different orientation, and that was it. These were not characters that had come up through the ranks or had their own team or what have you. That was pretty much it. This was the affirmative action team, led by the original affirmative action character, the Falcon.
Well, this is the hard
And
part.
I'm being facetious when I'm being snarky when I'm saying that at the end of the day, because the Falcon is anything but an affirmative action character, but they did it to him back here in 181. And then when they, go to the future and we need a new team leader, you got the Falcon on the team for Captain America, you got Jane Foster on the team for Thor, and it doesn't get much better after that. So once again, he's back in the same situation.
And the thing is, when the hard part when you take the Avengers. Now look at the lineup. So on the page of the lineup, the lineup is pretty standard. You could throw in Thor, Wonder Man, a few other characters in there. I mean, I'm a fan of Quicksilver, but it's like you have this looks like a standard Avengers team. And when you go to those other teams where it's like all these characters, that writer is like, I guess the same way Steve Englehart was doing the new FF. It's like, I gave them a new FF, a new energy, a new thing. And then people are like, no, but I want to do the Avengers. I don't want to do all these, I don't want to do Thor as a woman. You got other people that have been wanting to do the Avengers and they're looking at it like, ugh. And the reader is the same. So it's like, it's tough to be in the same instance. I mean, just to say, that the aspect of, having the Avengers seem like Avengers, you had when that the Kang Dynasty story that Kurt Busiek was doing. When he was doing that, the start of it had Alan Davis on it. Now, Alan Davis was signed up to do 6 issues. They did one with mostly Avengers and they fighting these fake Hulks. And then it leads into, I think, the last 3 of Kang issues that Alan Davis does. But Alan Davis and the inker, they're like, even though it had a lot of the other Avengers in it, they're like, we got stuck drawing Silverclaw. We got stuck drawing Triathlon. Like, so you can be creating these characters. They could be the most diverse thing. You can be by one of the most solid writers of its time in the 90s. And you put the lineup of these characters or progressive or different or young characters into the person that wants to do the Avengers. They're like, come on, that's not that's not the Avengers. I don't want to do Silver Claw's on there for like 5 pages, and 5 pages too many. He didn't say that, but it was funny to see that we wanted to get back to the icons. That's what we wanted to do. So, but yeah, this issue. When I got this, I was, I loved seeing this page. Any of the big splash pages were big. This was good. And then this leads into this big Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch storyline, which is a lot of fun of finding out, even though it was supposed to get to Magneto being, or hint that Magneto is Quicksilver's and Scarlet Witch's father, it actually gets into the person that raised them. So it's a really interesting story. Here we have the Avengers fake leaving, because this is the truth of it. These guys, Simon talking about, hey, I'm gonna go try some acting out. Says goodbye to the Vision, and he's gone for like 2 issues. Wonder Man. Sorry. Who's it? Hank Pym. Now this is another testament to Hank Pym, right? Because he is not been picked, and Wasp has been picked, and he addresses that might be feeling a little jealous, but they are so madly in love during this period. Like, he's like, hey, when we get reacquainted, and then when she's, I think, at Wongador, and what's the name's when Falcon appears in this later issue, he's on the phone with Jan. He's like, oh, she's stuck in such and such, shooting out. I gotta go see Jan. And he's like, then he was like signed up to be an Avenger again. He's like, no, I want to go back and just be work in my lab. And then he had to come back to the Avengers. And then when Shooter gets him in there, and no, they actually get captured by the Taskmaster. They get captured by the Taskmaster when they break free with Scott Lang as Ant-Man. They're making out again. It's like, did Shooter read this book? These guys are madly in love. Well, I mean,
never stopped him from writing his own story.
well, it's also Byrne and Perez. They both liked Jan and Hank together. neither of them liked them breaking up, so both of them pushed them back together. But you could see in what they're doing, they were fans of these two, and they had a long-standing relationship. Adding a divorce to it didn't really help. I mean, they did as much as they could to build up the Wasp, but she always was, she at this point she was a mainstay. She could be flirty and still be a resilient member of the Avengers. So we see all of this. Another good. Byrne was always good for, pseudo kind of splash type pages. So we have the Guardians leaving, um, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, and you got the champion. No, then the Black Panther. So the Black Panther has his own ship. I thought it was a championship, but Black Panther is taking the Black Widow and Hercules out. But yeah. So we got the Avengers, and then of course soon after we see Scarlet Witch fall out. Like, I don't know what's going on with them. The Quicksilver was hard to stop beating, and they said they're not dead, but they're not alive. And then we find out
What the heck does that mean?
they've been turned into, to little toys. It's honor thy father. So it's
You know what that means, people? You've got to tune in next issue, Avengers 182, to find out. And if you're like me, I got to wait a whole month for an answer? Forget this.
It's funny. I always think of buying comics as a kid, and you don't know what schedule you're on. So that's what I'm saying. When having one of those issues, I guess it had to be 184. It had to be 187. It had to be, and I believe either I saw one of them, but I had at least 189 and 191. I know I had those, or somehow saw those. But you see how sporadic it can be, your comic buying as a kid. Like, same with the X-Men, there were the bigger gaps in that. The Fantastic Four, I might have had 190 something. So it's just like, and I don't know if it was my brother's or mine, but it was just kind of this period where you just you didn't always get to see the next issue as a kid, but it would still hold your attention, and you would put together the pieces of the puzzle that, okay, they figured it out. Oh, okay, this guy's the person that raised. So it was interesting that this was supposed to be a premiere trying to do something with Quicksilver, and then it just bled into the Avengers comic book that would hint that Magneto was their father. But in this one, I think by 187, they just hint that their real father, had went mad and left. And that's in the X-Men title. They would have a woman who looks Magneto looking at a woman that looks like Scarlet Witch, and he would say Magda, and it would be an unsaid thing to say that Magneto. But the person who raised them, this is going to lead into his story. He looks like he's a villain, but we'll see if he is and if he's not. All right, any other things?
No, I think that tears it about all.
Spinner Rack is
Out.
out.